Good morning, Judge Mphahlele.
Good morning, Chief Justice.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm just recovering from flu, so if I cough, don't be worried.
Okay, all right, thank you. You hold a BProc and LLB degrees, am I right?
Yes, Chief Justice.
Both from the University of Limpopo.
Yes.
Now, you were an attorney for how many years?
I was an attorney for 15 years, excluding my
And-
period of articles.
Yes. And did you have a partner, or were you the sole director, so to speak, of your company, of your firm?
I was the sole practitioner.
And it does require some leadership skills and some managerial skills to run and sustain a practice. Just very briefly tell us how running a firm of attorneys has equipped you in terms of leadership and management.
I had to manage the practice, manage the professional staff, as well as the administrative staff. And I have to attend to the budgetary requirements of the practice. I have also to market the practice. So all in all, I was managing everything in the practice. And over and above that, Chief Justice, I opened an insolvency practice because I was a liquidator trustee on the panels of the Masters of the High Court in Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Mafikeng. And because in terms of the practice of the Attorneys Act, we are not allowed to share fees with non-attorneys. And in the practice of insolvency, we were, in the nature of things, we were appointed with other professionals like chartered accountants. So I deemed it fit that I had a different vehicle. So in that respect, I ran two practices and I managed to even capacitate in a train upcoming attorneys and insolvency practitioners.
Now,
And I had a role again. I played a role in the organizations related to the practice. I served in the Law Society of the Northern Provinces, which was
yes,
oh, okay.
I was going to come to that.
Oh, okay.
But I first wanted you to tell us very briefly, during that period and even now, when it is difficult for a woman legal practitioner to secure work, how did you manage to secure work and keep your practice alive until you were appointed to the bench?
Chief Justice, this was a challenge, I have to be fair and honest. It boils down to the issue of the briefing patterns. It's a challenge to be a Black woman practitioner. You have to prove yourself, I think maybe 10 times your male counterparts. But I have to be thankful because when I joined the insolvency practice at the time, we made our concerns to the powers that be, the government, the Minister of Justice, and at least we were given a hearing and there were policies that were put in place to make sure that a Black practitioner, because we were like the first group of Black practitioners who were interested to join the insolvency practice. And the Department of Justice drafted a new policy and made a rule that in all insolvency matters, there must be a member from the previously disadvantaged group, and that's how my insolvency practice flourished. But as far as the attorney's practice is concerned, it was a real challenge. And I'm sorry to mention this. I was even failed by the government itself. Because in instances where the government put you on panels, you find you are turned into an office of quotations. We specialize in giving quotations. And every time you are told you didn't make it, and you are not given a reason why. And when I called for reasons so we can improve, because it takes even financial resources to make sure that you have staff complement who will prepare those quotations. And every time you get a negative feedback, it's really bad. And there's something they have to look to. Because my feeling is they must have a panel of attorneys and even advocates, and you brief people and you tell them, this is my rate, and it's up to me whether I take it or not. Unlike calling upon me to give a rate and you don't give me work and you don't give me feedback. And when I got work, then they don't pay. I do the work, they don't pay, and the advocate threatened to blacklist me. And I was once reported at the Law Society, and I told the Law Society, where do I get the money to pay the advocates? Because the government, in some instances, and safe to say, I've been appointed a judge in 2013, but I'm still owed by some departments. It's so sad. And when I share with my fellow practitioners who I left behind, they're still faced with the same challenges. I don't know when will it end. And it's so sad, especially for female practitioners.
You were elected, I believe, to the position of chairperson of the Gauteng Law Council. How would you say that leadership role contributed to injecting even more confidence in your leadership and managerial capabilities?
It did, because I was the first woman chairperson of the Gauteng Law Council. And I'm indebted to my colleague, my fellow practitioners for having voted me in. And remember, the Gauteng Law Council, we were overseeing more than 8,000 attorneys. And I made a point that I went on a roadshow and went to the various areas in Gauteng to make sure that the practitioners appreciated who we are and who are we for. And it really helped me, especially in interpersonal skills, how I interacted with my fellow colleagues. And again, how do I managed to lead even people who were older than me. So it really boosted me. After that, I saw that I can make it, that even lead those who are older than me and who have been in the field, who entered the field before me. So it boosted my confidence. And that's why later on, I served as the vice president of the Law Society of the Northern Provinces.
I was getting to that one. And tell me, what is the, no, you've done nothing wrong. I assume that the membership of the Law Society of the Northern Provinces is much larger than that of the Gauteng Law Society. Am I mistaken?
No, it's larger because it's serving Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga.
That's right. What about the Northwest? It isn't the Northwest included?
Part of it.
In the different provinces?
I stand to be corrected.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Now, how did that capacitate you, very briefly? How would you say that also enhanced your leadership skills? How did that contribute towards making you the leader that is confident enough to apply for the position of Deputy Judge President of the High Court?
Like I said, it was on a larger scale than the Gauteng Law Council. And we were on policy making. And again, observance of the rules, making sure that the practitioners play by the rules of the game. And we had disciplinary powers as well. And in the absence of the president, I would be given an opportunity as well to chair the monthly council meetings. So
Yes.
we had different committees of the council, like the gender committee and the transformation committee, and one served in those committees as well. So as far as on the issues of finances, the running of the meetings, and making sure that the staff of the Law Society were performing in trying to oversee the whole thing, it really empowered me as well.
How big was the executive or or the leadership structure of which you were vice president at the time? How many other leaders were there? What was the staff complement under your your leadership together with the president?
The management committee, I stand to be corrected, I think we were 6, if I'm not wrong. I think we were 6, and the meetings will be also attended by the heads of the departments of the Law Society. And the whole council itself, it was 24 councillors.
Did you ever get a sense that your leadership capabilities were not appreciated? Or did you get a sense that people respected you for what you were capable of offering?
JP, I'm used to calling.
No, they never removed that title from me.
I'm not demoting you. I don't intend.
No, it's okay, my sister.
It
was never removed.
Yeah, I'm used to communicating with JP, so I'm like, yeah. The truth of the matter is, I went all out to perform. So I must not be felt pity for or just be accommodated because I'm a woman. I wanted to be appreciated for what I offer. But truth be told, there are colleagues, especially from the male component, who are preaching for equality. They preach it, but they act to the contrary. At one time at a meeting, and I will never forget this, when I was raising my point and I was so passionate about the point that I was raising, and the other male colleagues were not impressed with the point. The other one just hugged me and said, "No, don't worry, sweetie, I'll speak to you after the meeting." And you see, those are the challenges. And some people take it lightly, and it's hurting, but I don't allow that to get to me. And you'll be surprised, it's those who are so vocal about empowerment of women. They are vocal, but what they're doing is contrary.
Yes. Finally, just tell us, you've acted as Deputy Judge President, you've acted as Judge President. Very briefly, just tell us how you believe that has shaped you and how that has opened up your eyes to the challenges in the division and how you could strengthen the JP's arm in trying to resolve those challenges. Couple that with the opportunity you had to chair the Mpumalanga Provincial Efficiency Enhancement Committee, but be as brief as you have been throughout, so far as possible.
Yes, I'll be brief. I think I started at the top because I started acting as a JP when the JP went on long leave for 13 weeks, and thereafter for 29 weeks, and not including the 2 weeks that I did now. I'm now acting as well until the end of term. I acted as a DJP. What my experience is, I was responsible for ensuring that the court remained efficient. I did oversight over the judicial staff, officers, as well as the administrative. Maybe I want to be brief, but I just want to take you back. Remember, I was one of those judges who was sent on circuit to Mpumalanga when, at a time when the Mpumalanga High Court was being formed. So I was lucky to be part of the formation of the new structure. What I realized and what was very important for if we want to be efficient is the training of staff. So the first thing that I identified is to train the staff, and I took part in it. And recently, in the first week, during recess, I facilitated the training of the judges' clerks because I wanted them to appreciate what's their role in the whole scheme of things. And I chaired the PEC meetings, as you say, those meetings for the benefit of the others. The objective, the mandate of these meetings is to enhance access to justice. And we're meeting with the stakeholders. Like I'm saying, Mpumalanga is a new structure. We're meeting with the state attorney, the master of the high court, and all the other role players to make sure that we reach the objective of the access to justice. I was involved in the court itself on the allocation of work to judges and overseeing the overall. I'm trying to be brief here, CJ. I was overseeing the overall. But one thing that's very important about the meetings of the PEC that I identified is
Maybe to interrupt you while you are there, Judge Mphahlele, just in case you want to touch on it, you would recall it is access to justice, but also ensuring that every key stakeholder in the running of the courts plays their part so that courts can function as a well-oiled and efficient machine or machinery. Yes. I'm sorry I interrupted you. You may go ahead.
Yes, in that respect, as a new institution in Mpumalanga, one of my concern was the non-efficient running of the master of the High Court. We'll appreciate that the people of Mpumalanga, for them to access the services of the master, they have to come to Pretoria. And we have people who are relying on the Guardian Fund, traveling to Pretoria for people who don't even have financial resources. It's a very serious challenge. And in these meetings, I always impress it upon the master of the High Court to make sure that they have a complement to efficiently serve the people of Mpumalanga. And I'm happy that the Minister of Justice is in the meeting, and I'm making the call because I'm always told that the powers that be will make a decision. I'm just not imposing myself, but for the minister to appreciate the inconveniences of the people of Mpumalanga to access, especially the master of the High Court. When they want to report their estates, when people want to access the monies in the Guardian Fund, it's a challenge. And we meet even, in those meetings, we meet even the NDPP, we meet the state attorney, and we make sure that everything, when we start, we usually do these meetings during recess. So when we start to run the cases, everything will run smoothly.
Thank you, Judge Mphahlele. Colleagues, let me have the names of those who want to put questions to Judge Mphahlele, please.
Lamola, Nyambi,
Pofu, and Maya CJ.
Tepe.
Donsela.
Shlema.
Arnold, Dodovu.
Please hold it there, please. I ended with Commissioner Matolo Dlepu, who comes after. I heard Mr. Barnett, Commissioner Barnett as well. Who else?
It was Dodovu.
Thank you, Honorable Dodovu. And then who
Schlemmer.
else?
Schlemmer.
Prof. Prof, you must just say Prof. Who
Singh,
else?
Singh,
Yes, sir. All
Lambo
right.
JP.
JP Lohodi?
Thank you, CJ. Judge Mphahlele, I must say I am struck by your humbleness. Probably something that I did not know that you possess, and I wish I could be like you. Now, by the way, you were raised at Mphahlele, is it Seleting or Makuru?
JP, I was born and bred in Mamelodi. My parents come from Mphahlele. So about 90% of my relatives are based in Mphahlele.
And how often do you visit that area?
Like I say, almost 90% of my relatives are there. So it's like my second home.
And when you go there, they address you as Matlaku.
Yes, that's my name.
They know no status. They know no titles. The way you are speaking to us today, is it what you have learned from those people as you visit them?
I can attribute that to my mom. That's how I was raised by my mom.
Do not be overwhelmed by that. I'm sure probably I'm touching the wrong button in yourself. You are the one who introduced the every Friday judges meeting, which is held virtually since last year till to date. Am I right?
You're correct, JP.
I want you to tell us why, and before you do so, some other people say, if you focus on people, if you care for people, they will refuse to let you down. Why did you find it necessary for these meetings to take place on every Friday?
JP, I was asked on several occasions when I was acting as a JP and the DJP to administer the oath to the acting judges. And I used that opportunity, and I'm indebted to Judge President Mlambo, because I would ask for accommodation because most of them are coming from Gauteng side. I would ask for the accommodation there to meet them. So I would use that opportunity as an induction for the acting judges. And that will proceed. And then as we are in court, I will make sure that I discuss with them just to cushion them in for them to feel at home and be able to execute their duties. So when the COVID-19 struck us, I was very concerned that we are operating remotely from home and maybe people would be frustrated at home and not knowing how to interact with us. Because it's one thing to say people giving an invitation that my door is always open. You know, some doors are so closed, even if you are invited, you can't even attempt to knock at them. So I thought it would make easy for especially the acting judges to interact with the permanent judges on the Friday meetings and for them to relate their challenges and for those who are empowered to share their experiences for their empowerment. And those meetings have turned out to be like mini workshops where we discuss issues and we even discuss the challenges that we are faced with due to the COVID-19. And that's what the main reason. My concern was more about the acting judges, the interaction with the permanent judges.
And because these Friday meetings are your product, you are the one who is chairing these meetings every Friday despite the fact that the head of office is always in those meetings. Am I right?
Yes, I always chair them, even if you are, even in your presence, I chair the meetings.
Now, lastly, Judge Mphahlele, as I'm saying, if you focus on people, if you care for people, they will refuse to let you down. What would you say is your relationship with the staff?
My relationship with the staff is very good, JP. Remember, like I said, I was fortunate to be part of the whole establishment from the start. So when we started, both in Mbombela and in Middleburg, we had limited staff. In Middleburg, we had 2 people. So I had a relationship with them. And as the staff increased, I had relationships with them and made sure that they understand. I had informal meetings with them. And because of that, even the staff in Mbombela, whilst I'm based in Middleburg, they call me for advice on how to handle, how to, when they have challenges, how to deal with those challenges.
Now, in the event you are appointed for this position, let me just give you a tip. From time to time, if you do get time, just walk into the offices and greet and share ideas with these officials. You will be amazed by the kind of cooperation which you get from these officials. I do it quite very frequent. But not only that, during lunchtime, when you see these women and men in overalls seated underneath a tree having their lunch there, take the opportunity to go to them, to know them better. You will be amazed when you live there how much you have learned from them. And sometimes you just wish we can have be a rich country and take them to school or also help their children to go to school. That is one humbling experience, and that is the advice that I'm giving to you in the event you were to be appointed. Is it too much to ask?
No, JP.
Okay. You are the only one who is not calling me by Mukoni, and I'm the only one who is calling you Matlaku. What difficulty do you find in not calling me Mukoni? Is it part of your upbringing in terms of respecting people, or what is happening?
Can I exercise my right not to answer that one?
I think he will ask you when you are back in the office. Exercise your right to remain.
Thank you for the protection, CJ.
CJ, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, JP. Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, CJ, and good morning to you, Judge Mphahlele.
Morning.
I must say, Judge Mphahlele, I like your stance of not being apologetic about women emancipation. You tell it as is. Back to my question, I have 2 questions for you. The first one would be, do you have any reserve judgments? If so, for how long have they been outstanding? And what could be a reason for that?
My only reserve judgments are for this term, and I'm attending to them.
Why are they outstanding?
Because it's this term and I was still busy with them. I'm still
Judge,
I'm still within the 3 months limit.
Judge, may we just give a premier a sense of when were they reserved, because not everybody knows what the term is.
Oh.
It may be lawyer's language.
Oh. Yes. Oh, I'm very sorry. The term is, we only started the term. This is the 2nd week of the term. And I reserve them because I just want to apply my mind to them, and I'm still doing my research. My apologies.
Thank you very much for that. The second question, which is the last one, do you have any outstanding complaints that you are aware of from any legal society? And if that is the case, what were those complaints all about?
The only complaint that I had with the Judicial Conduct Committee was one, and it was dealt with, and now it was found in my favor. I was found not to be at fault. It was whilst I was at Gauteng, so I don't have any pending that I know of.
No, thank you very much for the response, and thanks, CJ.
Thank you, Premier.
Follow up, CJ.
Yes, Honorable Malema.
No, I want to ask about, no, not ask. I want to give you an opportunity to expand on that 3 months. They are still within 3 months, so that there is no impression that you have done something outside the expected judgments. So it shouldn't be. So you're saying they are outstanding because they came within this term and they are still within 3 months.
Yes, Commissioner.
So I want you to say it so that when you leave here, because you will not be here and we're going to hear stories here.
Thanks for the clarity. That's what it meant. 3 years is not 3 years. I make it worse now. It's 3 months. Yeah. Thanks for the clarity.
Chief Justice, may I on the Premier's question, please?
Okay. You may just as well do whatever you wanted to do, Commissioner Singh.
Okay, thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Judge Mphahlele.
Good morning.
I'm just following up on the Premier's question about complaints from any bodies. Now, they may not be listed as complaints in the pact that we have, but as objections. One of the comments from the Law Society is that they have no comment to make on your proposed appointment, and they refer to the coffin case which you are aware of. And the second sort of complaint or objection comes from a lawyer called Sahir Omar, where some of the things he talks about is the ignorance of the law that you have. You displayed a lack of composure and understanding, and then does not display the requisite grasp of substantive or procedural law. So just as a follow-up there, would you like to just comment on these letters that we received, Judge Mphahlele? Thank you.
Maybe let me start on the coffin case. I analyzed the evidence as was, I analyzed the evidence before me, and I reached the conclusion that I did. And I was set aside by the Supreme Court of Appeal on a competent verdict. I found on attempted murder, and they found on a competent verdict of assault with intent to give grievous bodily harm. I don't know why they are taking issue with that. It doesn't come out clearly for me why they are taking issue with that. And on the issue of the complaint of Mr. Omar, his main issue when I read the complaint is that by the time he was writing the complaint, I haven't delivered the judgment, despite that it was urgent. And I had to look for the judgment, and I found the judgment. And if you look at the date, it was done within 2 days. So I don't know, maybe he didn't get a copy from the correspondent, because usually what happened when we hand down judgments, the correspondent will come to know the judgments and give them to the instructing attorneys. I don't know why he didn't get the judgment, but as far as I'm concerned, the judgment is delivered.
Thank you very much for responding to that, Judge Mphahlele. And then my other question, well, should have been a question from the JP because it was asked before. Do you have intentions or aspirations to be the JP of Mpumalanga one day?
I do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, CJ, and good morning, Judge Mphahlele.
Good morning, Commissioner.
What is your role in the digitization in the province? As you have said, it's a new court, and it gives an opportunity to start new things. What is your role in the modernization and the digitization program?
After we attended a workshop where Judge President Mulambo gave a presentation on the case lines. And after the workshop, the JP Lokhodi mandated me to make sure that the judges in our division attend a further workshop because he invited all the divisions for further training. I did contact Judge President Mulambo and arranged for us to attend. It was, we attended, it was myself, Judge President Lekhodi and Judge Mali. Unfortunately, we were promised that immediately case lines will be implemented for Mpumalanga, and we were so excited. But due to some other challenges, it was not. So what we have opted to do now in Mpumalanga, we are doing our civil trials online, and we are improvising because what we're doing now, we have the hard copies delivered to the judges, and we arranged to be heard online despite the challenges. Like last night, I had an urgent application, but the judiciary email was down. So we use our own resources, and even my clerk has to use his own resources. I and a colleague drafted guidelines and directives for the conduct of trials online. So we have distributed it as a guideline and as a directive for all people conducting trials and motions online in Mpumalanga. That's how far we are. We're still waiting for Judge President Mulambo to come back to us on the case lines. But in the meantime, that's what we're doing, and we have the directives and the guidelines.
Yeah, you raised the issue about the master of the High Court that you do not
CJ,
want to.
if I may follow up on online issue.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge. How are you?
Morning, Commissioner.
If you can tell the commission how many judges are working in Mpumalanga right now and who are operating from home and not setting foot at all at the court and working through online, if you may know the number.
In Middelburg, we 3, and in Mbombela, it will be the Judge President and the 3. And I know the other 2 prefer sometimes to go to the court building, and the other one is operating from home.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, CJ. You mentioned the issue of the master of the High Court in Mpumalanga, and you were a bit restrained, feeling like you are imposing yourself to this space. So I want to free you that you are not imposing yourself. I receive on a day-to-day basis WhatsApp, emails, and all kinds of complaints about the non-functionality of the master of the High Court in Mbombela. So what do you think should be done to resolve the problem there or the challenges?
At least, Minister, you have case studies, you have the master's offices like Pretoria and other divisions which are running. You know the expectations, you know the services that you have to render. I assure you, the people of Mpumalanga require the same services. All you have to do is to hire the staff to do the work and find them offices. In Middelburg, you have to look. And one thing that you have to appreciate is the spread, the area spread of Mpumalanga. It's not as congested as Gauteng. And for people to travel around, it's really a challenge. And I would recommend that when you can have your main offices in Middelburg and Mbombela, but you must have outstations where people can go and report estates, where people can go. Because if as a judge, when I'm in court and I order that monies, maybe from the road accident fund, for a child I'm not comfortable, that it be given to parents, that it goes into the guardian fund. I'm so constrained. I'm saying, I'm ordering for this money to go to the guardian fund to Pretoria. And I'm expecting those people to travel to Pretoria. And I can assure you, when I was practicing as an attorney in Pretoria, that office was closing at 1 o'clock. And I'm talking about a person who will be taking a taxi from Nelspruit coming to Pretoria. What time is he reaching Pretoria to ask for the money? So all I'm asking and pleading is if you can have an office with full complement staff, because having one person doing everything, we are told one person is attending to sanitizing people and even doing files, doing inquiries. It's not effective. It's not. So you have to have a fully fledged office in Mbombela and another one in Middelburg, and have our stations, because Kwandebele is very far from Middelburg. People have to travel there, and we know people are using public transport. So that's my plea to you.
CJ, with your indulgence.
Yes, Minister, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, now this is the last, my last question in relation to the coffin case you just spoke about. As we speak now, you might have seen on the news what is happening in Piet Retief and in some parts of KZN. What do you think should be done to resolve some of these conflicts even before they reach the police, the courts, and the stages of adjudication? Because that area of the Highveld and Hartsbande in Mpumalanga is the highest in terms of these tensions.
Social cohesion, and that's not in my area of practice. I think we're still having challenges of people learning to live together in South Africa. And we have to be true to ourselves and address these issues. If we are lying to ourselves that we all embrace democracy and embrace the issue that we can, yes, there are people who have transformed and there are people who are willing to living with each other, but there are people who are still in those dark areas of apartheid, because it's so disheartening for such issues to be rearing their ugly heads, even in 2021. It's very concerning. So as long as we are not real and we are turning a blind eye to such issues, then we are not addressing us, we won't make any progress.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Nyambi.
Thank you, CJ. Morning, Judge Mphahlele.
Morning, Commissioner Nyambe.
My first question, if you can share with us the attributes of a good DJP that will make it possible that a rural province like Mpumalanga will be functioning at optimal level, then there's efficiency and effectiveness, and mainly focus on those that you think you possess.
I spoke about the issue of an open door policy. Being approachable. And over and above that, people must feel your presence, not that you are being overbearing. but extending a hand and for people to feel your presence and that you are willing to assist. Even when I was no longer acting as the DJP, because of the efforts that I undertook and the things that I did to extend a helping hand, I was approached by people, even practitioners, when they were having challenges. But because I was no longer in my acting capacity, I would channel them to the right people who will address their concerns. So, and the main issue is to be alive and appreciate the challenges of the province. I can safely say I didn't know the province very well, but I took my time to study and appreciate the province. And I can safely say that I'll be able to serve the people of Mpumalanga because I'm able to appreciate their challenges.
My last question, Judge Mphahlele, as somebody that has given herself to understand and study the province, what will be the Mpumalanga's division pressing needs that you will address should you be appointed that are very urgent working with the JP of that division?
The first issue is the review of the establishment. I appreciate the people who put the establishment together and their recommendations and of where we are. And looking back from where we started from, I'm proud that I was part of the formation of the province. But Middleburg is tending to be very busy than in Bombela. And with the establishment that we have in now, the number of judges and the supporting staff is not enough. We are struggling. As it is now, we had to collapse some roles, the criminal court roles, because we're not coping on the number of judges. And it's very concerning because of the level of crime in our country, which is real. In Middleburg alone, we must, on a daily basis, have 3 criminal courts running, and we don't have the judges to do, judges available to do that work. And we made a request, and our request apparently was not accepted. And there are still negotiations going on between the Office of the Minister and the NDPP. And one is only hoping for a positive response because it doesn't augur well with the members of the public. So my plea is for the establishment to have a real look at it because the judges there, the numbers both in the high felt and the low felt has to be increased. And the second one is about the digitization. That's very important as well. That we have to attend to and achieve as soon as possible, having all the red tapes taken into consideration.
Once again, Judge, I commend you for how you handled the coffin case, given the high tensions. You decided not to focus on the noise outside, but you mainly focus on the case. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you for the comment.
Follow up, CJ.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, CJ. I did not want to ask this question deliberately, Judge, but now that it has come up, I'm asking. You speak about the relook at the establishment. We agree to that in terms of the rationalization process that we've communicated to the JP. The question is with relates to the additional to the establishment, which for sure you are aware it's a budget decision. Yeah, so that is the difficulty that we have in regard to that, because when you now go beyond the establishment, it's now a budget decision that requires concurrence of the National Treasury. I'm not sure if you want to comment on that or not. If you don't want, we can pass the matter. Because I will understand the constraints.
CJ,
Minute.
I propose that she should not, because there is a pending case specifically dealing with this aspect in terms of the order which was issued on the 12th April after the criminal rolls collapsed. So I suggest that the issue should not be discussed and ask for her view because that matter is pending and is coming on the 30th. I'm sure the minister will appreciate what I'm trying to say to him.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, CJ. As you will have heard, I've said that I was loath to ask this question, but now that it came up, I think it's fair to answer, but I don't have a problem if it is not answered.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister. Advocate Mphahlele.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, Judge Mphahlele.
Afternoon, Commissioner Mpofu.
Thank you. Okay, because my questions are long, so I only ask one question. I would have wanted to ask you the same question I asked the other candidate about what sets you apart, but I'll abandon that one, hoping someone will pick it up. The question I want to ask you is about your passionate plea about briefing patterns, which is something that is close to my heart. So I always am encouraged to find someone who cries the cry that we cry all the time about this issue. And I want to ask it to you in relation to the position that you've applied for. And in other words, to what extent do you think that the leadership of the judiciary, which you now want to join, can assist us in that struggle to reverse the 27-year dismal failure of the government in this issue of briefing patterns? And the example I have is Judge President Mlambo. I don't know if that program is still there, but about 2 years ago started a program of the judges literally keeping score of the appearances in their own court. And I hope that the Chief Justice can also do the same in the Constitutional Court and the President of the SCA and so on. Now, the reason why I think that the leadership in particular has a particular role to play here is because, you know, sometimes when we do bad things, they end up being acceptable. And if there's no leadership, that is, if there's no exemplary leadership in this area, I think we may falter. And I say this because we see the president of the country represented by White Council, the Speaker of Parliament represented by White Council in a matter that I'm actually involved in, ministers represented by White Council. Currently, we even have the DCJ who's running a major commission, which is costing the country maybe 2 billion rand. And there are about 6 white senior counsel there. So if the leadership is not giving us giving examples how, and as you say, just pay lip service to this issue, do you think it can be resolved?
The best that can be done is what you quoted, because the project by Judge President Mlambo started when I was in Gauteng, and I was in full support of it because of the experiences that I went through as a practitioner. The bit that I do from my part is the training of candidates, and even having talks in my chambers with counsels who appear before me. Because most of the time, the excuse used is that we lack experience. And I tell you, there's no person who's born with experience. Those who are experts, they are so-called. If you remember, the Competition Act just came into place. And the next morning when we woke up, they were experts. in respect of the competition commission.
Even the constitution.
Yeah, and some of us were told we are not experts.
Mhm.
So I believe in empowerment. And if you go through my CV, you saw even when I was in practice, I make it a point. It was a challenge because I was a sole practitioner, but I made it a point that I register for courses. So when I go and knock on doors and I'm told those stories, I will produce and say, hey, I have the theory, give me a chance. So what I do, my part is I usually have one-on-one talks with the councils and try to encourage them not to lose, because some are discouraged and wanting to leave the profession, and especially women. And we keep on complaining that we don't have enough women. And I think the keeping of data, that's the best that the judiciary can do, because we can't dictate to the executive or who to appoint, or to the companies which appear before us. We can't dictate to them who to appoint or not appoint.
Yes, I'm sorry, just a follow-up, CJ. But do you agree that if the leadership in the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature do not practice what they preach, that sets the struggle for improved briefing patterns back by many, many years?
Yes, even if the judiciary, we can keep on, we want more women to come and act, but we don't appoint women to come and act. We're just paying lip service to it.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, sir. President.
Thank you, CJ. Good day, Sister Judge.
Good morning, President.
It is a profoundly proud moment to have two competent women vying for this leadership position. And I look forward to witnessing with my own two eyes what JP Lehodi alluded to, having that division, and maybe indeed other divisions, and the judiciary itself led by women. Now, you don't just hold the two academic degrees mentioned by the CJ, but have a number of other law diplomas and certificates under your belt, not so?
Yes, President.
You should have mentioned those. I've looked at your questionnaire in relation, well, you were accused of being humble, so I suppose that attests to that quality of yours. The LSSA has complained about your being overturned in the Worstazen case, and that's their sole reason for their objection to your appointment. Now, I looked at your questionnaire and I see that actually is the only judgment in which you've been overturned on appeal in your entire judicial career, not so?
Yes.
Well, speaking for myself, I've no doubt that you're a well-rounded lawyer and you've acquired the necessary experience for this position. But my only concern relates to the imputation made by the Mpumalanga Society of Advocates, I think, which criticizes your lack of judicial temperament when it comes to treatment of counsel. How can you defend yourself against this criticism?
I went through that. You know what's happening through you, Chief Justice? What's happening is when we're starting a new establishment. When we started, it was training, cum, hearing of matters. I would leave court even at 6 o'clock. And I told them that there must come a time where we cut the umbilical cord and we start being serious now about issues. Not that we are not being serious. And their complaint, as I go through it, is I call them to order in court, not in private. Those who are practicing, especially in motion code and in roll call, you know that if I don't give you an order on a matter, whether it's an opposed or opposed, I say what I have to say in court, and they have reservations about that. that why do I do it in public? Why don't I do it in private? That's not possible. If I have about 50 matters before me, I can't keep on saying, number one, come to my chamber and I speak to you, and say number two. That's not how it's done. And I think even practitioners who saw me doing it in Johannesburg and Pretoria, that's how it's done. And that process, it empowers the others. Because if you hear me calling somebody to order that your application lacks in respect of 1, 2, 3, when you bring yours the next time, you'll make sure it doesn't lack in that respect. It's unfortunate that they feel like I'm intending to embarrass them. And I spoke to them and I told them, I'm not intending to embarrass you. That's how things are done. And I don't intend to embarrass them. And that's why I always make my time. And even on Saturdays, we'll have workshops to empower and make sure that we do things the right way. And I am strict on compliance with the practice directives. That I don't compromise. And there's a reason for that. It's because I do allocations. And when I allocate to judges, I have to make sure that judges have enough preparation time. If today is Wednesday, is a closing roll, I don't expect people to bring papers on the day of the hearing or a day before, and they say I'm being unreasonable. That's being unreasonable for the judges if I accept the papers a day before or on the morning, and I expect judges to go to court prepared. But
I'm
I assure you,
satisfied.
I'll
Thank
go
you.
back and reflect. And I've been doing the reflection since I got those comments. And where I lack, I ensure that I'll improve.
Thank you. I'm satisfied. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, President. Commissioner Tsepe.
Thank you, CJ. Good day, Judge.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Yes. Judge, the issue one of the issues I wanted to raise with you, you actually responded to it adequately when you were responding to JP Lehodi's question. The last question I then wanted to ask is, what do you think the role of the DJP is in ensuring that the magistracy functions optimally?
Obviously, that role is for the JP. And if the JP delegates, then the DJP has to step in. And we have to keep the communication lines open. And those issues regarding the magistracy are discussed at the PEC meetings. Maybe I didn't mention that the other role players who attend the PECC meetings is the regional court president and even the chief magistrates. And we look at their performance at those meetings and where they lack and need assistance. That's where we give our input.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Advocate Madonsela.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mphahlele.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Madonsela.
In the matter of insolvency practitioners versus the Minister of Justice, the Constitutional Court struck down the policy devised by the Minister of Justice to ensure transformation in the appointment of liquidators and trustees by the Masters of the High Court. We now have the vacuum in that regard. Given the fact that you have a background in insolvency practice, is there any judicial role that judges should play in monitoring the appointment of liquidators, trustees, and curators' bonus by way of practice directives, perhaps?
The appointment of the insolvency practitioners?
Yes, in liquidations or the likes, or appointment of curator bonus by the, for instance, the asset forfeiture unit
or the trustees during the liquidation or the sequestration of parts?
Yeah, in as far as the insolvency practitioners, the appointment thereof is concerned, I don't think as the judicial officers we can be of assistance because the appointments are done by the master of the High Court. So the court doesn't interfere in that respect because there's a process that they follow. They look at the value of the nominations of the creditors because the interest is more about the interest of the body of creditors. So they look at the nominations of the creditors, who the creditors prefer. And to be honest, Commissioner, the creditors are the big corporates, and the big corporates still prefer their own, and their own don't happen to be the previously disadvantaged. And that's where the government came to my assistance to be in those matters.
Yes, the second question relates to the newly promulgated Rule 41 capital A that provides for judicial mediation of cases before they are allowed to unfold in a trial situation. In what respects do you think that judicial mediation can take place, given the fact that judges are maybe ultimately required to adjudicate on the disputes between the parties? Is it practicable, or how do you propose that the implementation of that rule should be put in place to allow the process of judicial mediation? I ask because if during mediation, it often happens that parties give out the weaknesses in their case, or even the fault lines in their cases. And how could that happen, that a judge who has judicially managed a case may ultimately be required to adjudicate on the same matter when he knows the pitfalls of the parties' positions?
Yeah, obviously, if you get involved in the mediation, you are automatically excluded from coming to preside over the matter. Maybe if we can have, it's something that I've been struggling with. I haven't come to a conclusion in my mind because I was thinking maybe if we can have mediators, the mediators will assist in mediation of these matters. And if these matters are not positively mediated upon, people fail to reach a settlement, then the matters can be referred to court for adjudication.
I have a limit of 2 questions. I will leave it at that.
Thank
you. Did you attend, just as a follow-up, the workshop organized for both judges and magistrates for mediation, court-annexed mediation, based on the American system?
What about it, Chief Justice? I missed the first part.
Did you attend that workshop that some of us attended regarding how possible it is for a judicial officer to mediate, knowing that if the matter doesn't get resolved, they'll have to recuse themselves and hand over to another judicial officer to do that, to handle the trial?
Yes, I attended, and that's why I said it's automatically excluded.
Yes. And okay, I thought you said it can't work.
No, it will work. It will work.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Matolo,
can I have a follow-up, Chief Justice, on that question? On the contribution?
Maybe you want to debate it with me on the side, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chief Justice.
Yes, because Commissioner Matolo.
Thank you, CJ, and good afternoon, Judge Mphahlele.
Good afternoon,
I
Commissioner.
must declare we have been together for a long time, so especially with the transformation of of the legal profession. I'm just surprised why you didn't indicate how we were ambitious to try to come up with SADC lawyers, women lawyers organization. But having said that, I asked the same question to your colleague. Do you still engage with the sidebar and bars in trying to, because this is your feeder area to get judges from there. Do you still do that? And how often do you do that?
I still engaged, and it's not as often as I used to do when I was a practicing attorney. And that's due to the pressures of the work that I'm involved in now. But I do get involved. I was even involved twice. One time it was in the training of aspirant judges organized by the Law Society in conjunction with the Judge President Mulambo. And the second one was organized by Nadel in conjunction with the Law Society of South Africa. And I can assure you that I'm still interested in the empowerment of women. And I'm involved, I'm a member of the Women Judges Organization, the South African chapter. And I'm part of the project of the mentorship. Just a day before, I've been allocated 2 mentees, young ladies to mentor. Last year, I mentored one. It's just that due to the COVID-19 challenges, there was a delay because we start at the beginning of the year. And now we had challenges, so I was only allocated the 2 young ladies on the day before yesterday, and we still have to meet to discuss how I'm going to mentor them.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Barnard.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Difficult choice for the JSC to choose between 2 competent candidates, very competent candidates. So the question is, for this leadership position, what makes you the best candidate for the job or gives you the competitive advantage?
As I've already explained, that I come from a background of managing a law firm, managing an insolvency practice, and having led the Gauteng Law Council, and having been in the management of the Law Society of the Northern Provinces, and having had an opportunity to act as the judge president, and I haven't heard of any complaints that were received when I acted as such, and having had an opportunity to act as the deputy judge president as well, and again, having had opportunity to chair the Mpumalanga Provincial Efficiency Enhancement Committee, and the role that I played, and especially in capacitating the support staff as well, facilitating the workshop for the empowerment of the judges' clerks and the support staff.
Thank you. Maybe to add on to that and comments that have already been made, to apologize for any misunderstandings from the LSSA comment, because clearly there was something maybe not taken into consideration. So apologies from our side. But then speaking about the court itself, Mpumalanga division, the High Court there and its accessibility to persons with disabilities, thinking about the entire division, how accessible is it, and is there anything that needs to be done in this regard still?
The one in Middelburg is not accessible. And when we moved into I'll refer to it as the new building. It's a very old building, but for us, it's a new building. When we moved into the building, that's the first thing that I raised with the representative, the person who was in charge, We raised it with him, and he promised us that they'll attend to us. And we even identified a spot where even they'll do the ramp, but because of protocols, we're still waiting. After a year, we're still waiting for them to do. We have identified how they must make it accessible, but we're still waiting for the implementation. We were promised that it will be made accessible.
The newer one, the Mbombela side?
The Mbobesela side, as far as I can remember, and the entrance, it is accessible especially for people who are using wheelchairs, unlike the one in Middelburg.
Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, sir. Just as a follow-up, maybe to help round it up, Mbombela even has lifts, doesn't it? And that's how to access the upper floors.
Yes.
Yes. Honorable Dodovu.
Thank you very much, CJ. Good afternoon, Justice.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Yes, just one question because I'm largely covered by colleagues. What is your view about these allegations that are floating around that judges are corrupt? Do you think there is any merit to it, or is just mere allegations?
When I heard the allegations, I was very concerned, but I was comforted when the Chief Justice made an announcement. He made a call to all those who are having evidence of judges who are corrupt, so they can be investigated. So nothing has been forthcoming, but it's concerning that there are such allegations. And I would urge the people who have evidence that it be produced and they be brought to book.
As in your own view, do you think that the judiciary is unethical?
Is what? Unethical?
Yes.
I haven't met any judge who's unethical so far.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, sir. Prof.
Thank you, CJ. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm to your right, immediately to your right, at least in the venue. I would like to hear from you, ma'am. You've been a judge now for a few years, and you have been working as an attorney for quite a long time, and I see that you have access to justice as a general rule close to heart. How do you think will your position, if you were to be appointed as Deputy JP, how could that impact and assist in creating better access to justice?
I think one important thing is for the people out there to be empowered with knowledge. Because for people just to know that they have rights, but when those rights are infringed upon, they don't know what to do. They don't know which institutions to approach. It doesn't help. So I think the first step is for people to get information, to be sensitized, that what remedies are available to them when their rights are infringed upon. What I do in court, especially when we do sensitive issues like the foreclosures, that's when we deal with the repossession of residential properties. That's where you see people appearing in person. And as judicial officers, what I do, I engage, but I make sure that I make them aware of their rights and make them aware about the legal aid, the existence of the legal aid, because some don't know, and make them aware about the program of the pro bono initiatives, which was, I don't know, the legal practice council, if they're still offering it, because I know the bar council and the law societies used to have the pro bono initiatives. So I will refer them to them so they can advise them quickly. So my advice is, if we can have if we can have information out there and empower people to know when their rights are infringed and what they do, and especially when they receive court processes, some people stay away because they are afraid to come to the court.
Thank you, ma'am. Just one last question. What would you see as the pinnacle of your judicial career, if you have to see in a couple of years' time now?
In the years to come,
Yeah, what would be the pinnacle of your judicial career?
becoming the JP of Mpumalanga.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Prof. JP Mlambo.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good afternoon, Judge Mphahlele.
Good afternoon, Judge President Mlambo.
You aspire for a leadership position, and do you subscribe to the principle that you lead by example?
I do.
Now, in paragraph 17 of your questionnaire, you list 3 matters as being part-head. Part-head matters are what becomes of what leads to backlog matters. And you know there's a project to eliminate backlogs in the courts. What is the status of these part-head matters?
In the one matter, they asked for me so they can review, because they wanted to, it was an RAF matter. They wanted to review the medical legal reports. And in the second matter, the challenge there is that the defendant is appearing in person and is delaying. It's a Pretoria matter. So what I do, I gave it, I even asked the JP that I don't do any research duty the last winter, the last 2 winter recess. For me to attend to this matter, I gave preference to it because there was a person who was appearing in person. And it seems to me, it comes to be a very challenging matter as far as that person is concerned, because we keep on adjourning for him to take legal advice. And the last recess, I made myself available. I didn't make myself available for the other 2 matters. I made myself available for the whole recess to finalize that matter. And on the day that we were supposed to start, he sent us a message that he was out of the province, and due to the comorbidities that he's suffering from, he won't come to court. So we couldn't proceed with the matter. But I've directed my clerk now to inform them that I'm making myself available this recess, that we'll do the matter via visual.
Are they all 3 still outstanding?
They are.
How long are they outstanding?
I can say it's a period of about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
I took issue with Judge Mphahlele, and I'm going to take issue with you as well.
Yes.
That I think 2 years is too long to finalize these matters. There's a point that you reach and say, it's now or never. These matters must be finalized. Do you agree with that?
I do.
And have you reached that point of saying these matters must now be finalized?
I think what I did, JP, I was making myself available in the winter recess, and I prioritized matter number 2. And disappointing, the defendant is not coming to replay, and he's acting in person. And if he asks me for time to consult and for him to call and refer, I tend to give him an opportunity. And you know why I'm doing that? I was reported with the Judicial Conduct Committee, where a person appeared in person and I made a ruling, and he felt like I didn't give him a hearing, and which I did, and I explained to the committee. So I tend to be very accommodating when people are appearing in person. And maybe it's to my disadvantage.
Yeah, just for my own clarity, you say the first one, it's only parthead because the parties asked to review the medical legal reports.
Yes,
So do they have a date when to come back to finalize this matter?
we haven't agreed on the date.
I see. But do you agree that to ensure that such matters are finalized, and if you say, are they all three from Pretoria?
Yes,
Well, don't you think responsibility suggests and accountability suggests that you approach your JP, so I've got these matters, can you release me to go to Gauteng and finalize these matters?
I take your suggestion, JP, and
Thank
I
you.
take your concerns.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you, JP. You're excused, Judge Mphahlele.
Thank you, CJ, for the opportunity to appear before you, the commission.